Welcome, everyone, to Contagious Exchanges, Queer Writers in Conversation. Yeah. Woo! I always like to say, do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself during the reading. If you need to laugh, you need to cry, you need to jump up and down, you need to go to the bathroom, you need to run out of the room, you need to run and buy some books. Whatever you need to do to take care of yourself. The only bad audience is the dead audience. So I can tell, is this a dead audience tonight? Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. So come on in, make yourselves comfortable. There's seats up here. And without further ado, we of course have two brilliant readers tonight. We have Leah Lakshmi Piepzna-Samarasinha and Randa Jarrar. It's going to be delicious. So, it'll be Leah, then Randa, and then the two of us on stage together. The three. We're actually going to have three people. I'm a person too. So, I first read Leah Lakshmi Piepzna-Samarasinha's work when she submitted to one of my anthologies, Dangerous Families, Queer Writing on Surviving, about 15 years ago. It's been that long. That piece begins, "Healing is my own anti-colonial war." And I immediately knew that it needed to open the anthology. It's possible to say that Leah's entire body of work continues this anti-colonial struggle, both inside and outside the body. Her latest book, Dirty River, a queer femme of color dreaming her way home, asks, in Leah's words, what comes after the disaster we keep surviving every day? The answer is everything at once. Leah guides us through heartache, heartbreak, and heart opening from a childhood by the dirty river of a post-industrial town to a world of self-creation in New York, Toronto, and the San Francisco Bay Area. Refusing easy answers because they are impossible, damaging, and unavailable, Leah delivers a kaleidoscopic view of the dangerous path to self-actualization. Leah's also the author of Body Map, a Publishing Triangle Award finalist, Love Cake, winner of a Lambda Literary Award, and Consensual Genocide. And she's co-editor of The Revolution Starts at Home, Confronting Intimate Violence in Activist Communities, a book that should be required reading for anyone who believes in justice. In fact, Leah's work imagining and creating options for healing and accountability that don't rely on the criminalizing mentality of the prison state infuses her raw and complicated descriptions of love, intimacy, abuse, and survival that make Dirty River a crucial intervention. Please welcome Leah Lakshmi Piepzna-Samarasinha.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can we just clap for Mattilda? Yeah, that was so nice. I don't know if anyone's experienced this, but there's sometimes when people were like, we wrote an intro for you, and then they read from like Wikipedia from 2006, and they're just like, she writes about stuff, okay, welcome, and you're like, oh God, do the thing. That was so beautiful, and I've got to say that I think that as queer writers of color, not to speak for any, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Randa, but I feel like we're always fighting for a lot of things, and we're often fighting not to be part of the literary canon, because I don't really give a shit about that, but like just to have our intellectual work taken seriously and our cultural work taken seriously, and to just be seen in all of our complexity. So thank you so much for that welcome. Yeah, and thank you for all the work you've been doing as a survivor queer femme writer for the past, 20 years and stuff. It's really cool. Okay, so this is the book. This book took like 12 years to get done. Sorry, I'm going to try and not do that booming microphone thing. A lot of people are like, it's so intense. And I'm like, I actually left the really intense stuff out. And then some people were like, my favorite compliment was someone was like, your book was really cool, but I just had to like do dabs like every 5 pages. And I was like, that's cool. Yeah, I should have put that like trigger warning for everything. If you need to smoke weed every 20 pages, it's fine. You know, if you need a crystal, whatever. But yeah, I'm going to read some of like the less triggerific parts of this book. And I'm just going to go for it. The first thing I'm going to read from is the preface, which is called Let's Get One Thing Straight, Surviving Abuse as Choose Your Own Adventure Novel. Also, please laugh, okay? Not dead audience, please. Okay, it's okay to laugh. Let's get one thing straight. This book is not The Courage to Heal, and it's not Push. It's not When You're Ready or No, A Woman's Word, or any of those other brutal, pastel-covered incest survivor books of the lesbian feminist 70s and 80s. It's not an incest survival horror story book, and it's not palatable either. In the end, I do not get normal, I get something else. There's uplift, but it's not a straight shot. I'm not overcoming my terrible pain, my terrible, horrible, tragic, lost innocence childhood. My therapist is not a major character, and the therapy sessions, court dates, and talking with nice policemen who fix everything, ditto. This book is something else. It's about how running like fucking hell at 21 and living in an apartment with shit gray wall-to-wall carpet, a weedy leaning tree out back, a bunch of dandelions you eat for greens when you're broke, a bathtub and a half-busted door that doesn't fill the doorway but still locks can feel like paradise. Can be paradise. The thing I always wanted to say is that surviving abuse sucks, but it's also a choose-your-own-adventure story. The heroine sets off on a journey of lockdown parents, lots of screaming at Christmas or Eid or Pesach, fucked up yelling, a one-way bus ticket, changing and unlisting your phone number, writing that mammoth email or letter and sending it to your parents, poverty, a stable girlfriend, and then everything falling apart again. This is the roadmap. True romance. Leaving America, finding a one-room apartment, true brown love, revolution, and bullshit. Finding yourself in your own body memories, chronic illness, brown sister femmes, homemade diwalis, walking away and building a new family. Not the easy way us brown girls think about it sometimes, because those words, family and home, are so seductive, especially when we put chosen in front of it. But they're not simple. They're not simple at all. This is heroic, not heartwarming or inspirational. Throw in a little underdocumented immigration, sex work, brown-on-brown domestic violence, and the struggle for social justice, plus a portrait of the artist as a young queer brown femme, you've really got something. Sometimes surviving abuse isn't just terrible. Sometimes when you leave your whole life behind, it feels blissfully free, stepping away from everything you've ever known, the bliss of your very first door that locks, wind between your legs, stopping everything that's happened for at least 7 generations. Free, free, free. Come in. Let me tell you the story. Thanks. Okay, that was 6 minutes. You can clap, come on. Yeah. Woo! And this is from a section called Girl Bomb. There's nothing like being young, brown, queer, in love, and completely motherfucking insane. Me and Raphael fucking in the middle of a field, 21 years old, in the middle of some music festival full of hippies and skinheads we've gotten free tickets to if we staff the anti-racist action table. Green, milky August grass stems, so sweet. If we ever have a child, can we make her here? I really want to. We got to ride up on the bus, my tiny bright orange and lime green gingham mini dress that stops right under the ass, him coming up and leaning me into the bus and making out with me. We are being that crazy brown couple holding knives and taking pictures in the collective festival kitchen before we fuck off our shifts. His Malcolm X t-shirt, my horny grin, fucking and nonstop talking. Slept next to each other on a twin futon on the floor every day and it never felt crowded. Me and him meeting, talking nonstop, sex, race, class, abuse, and crazy. At KOS back when it was the diner on the corner, mixed race brown, our parents, the movements. Me and him walking home, walking his bike from the activist house where we've worn out our welcome, fucking on the floor every night for 4 nights in a row, and staying up watching Brother from Another Planet on VHS after. Walking the bike all the way to his neighborhood when it's still the hood. When I ask him how long it is, he says, it's not far, but it's like 4 hours. We take a lot of breaks. We stop to fuck under the jungle gym in the playground a block away, hear someone breathing hard, look up at some disgusting 50-ish white man with his dick in his hand, and Raphael jumps up, pulls his knife out, screaming, I kill people like you. And afterward, he's triggered, shaking out of it, out of his body, and I'm familiar with that trigger. I'm familiar with him, his body, his survivor self, the way his eyes look when he's not here. And he's familiar with mine too. We're survivor brown queer fucking true love soulmates. He is the kind of boyfriend anyone's mother will shiver thinking that her daughter is fucking. We walk slowly home past Christie Pitts, past what he calls Little Aslan, but it's Toronto in 1997, so it's like one pupusa place and 2 Latino groceries next to the park. Nothing's gentrified. Nothing's what I recognize. It's everybody who's from here and everybody who's immigrated from someplace where Canada and the British used to be like us. It's donut shops, little fruit and veggie stands, crackheads staying up late, broke people bars with beer, $2 written in marker on a piece of cardboard in the window. And we finally make it home to the 2 towers where we live, with 1-bedroom apartments, $400, pay your first and last in monthly installments on the side of one, security guards, an attack dog, and pepper spray behind bulletproof glass on the other. There's 2 elevators, one working, we wait. We go to that place where it's put down the cafe con leche, there's 10 roaches floating in it 5 minutes later, tiny bathroom, 2-burner stove that gives you shock so bad it can throw you across the room, posters with the Angry Brigade, Assata Shakur, George Jackson, $1 gingerbula, peppermint tea, everything we need is here. Reading out loud from our loud voices from the Nuyorican Poets Cafe, boombox with every single thing Wu-Tag is doing in 1997, plus Nina Simone. Sometimes women are attracted to dangerous men. Sometimes we're attracted to them because our whole lives have been so dangerous we don't even recognize danger when we see it. Sometimes we choose dangerous lovers because they feed us something we're not getting from any other source. Sometimes we're attracted to them because that kind of crazy feels familiar, not the crazy of abusive, but the crazy of us. The crazy of our own brains, except with the masculine ones, the crazy gets to be some kind of Tupac, Dylan, Che, Kerouac, some kind of romantic, sexy, hotshot, Mad Max, troubadour amazement. It's sexy. We don't think it's going to be a mess. Sometimes we want one hell of an adventure, and they want us because Cray recognizes Cray, and at least whatever happens, it won't be boring. Rafa ran away from home when he was 14. His dad beat him, his mom, every day, or at least when his dad was around, between the 3 jobs after Chilean refugee immigration to Canada. Both of his parents had university degrees from Chile. His father was the first generation to scrape up from the village to the university. His mommy came from a more stable middle-class Isla Negra family. When they had to flee Chile after Pinochet destroyed their revolution, Canada laughed at their degrees, and they had to go back to school and drove cabs and waited tables and drove buses in the meantime. Rafa's dad worked all those jobs, didn't sleep for weeks. When Raphael ran away, he got taken in by the punk scene, slept in doorways and bridges and squats, sold weed, signed up at temp factory job places, had boyfriends and girlfriends. Although the first girl he'd ever managed to fuck, the one he'd asked out by giving her a Sex Pistols button outside the show, had yelled "wrong hole, asshole" at him when he tried to do it the first time. We both volunteered at the Prison Justice newspaper. We both sold weed with the West Side Crew. We both were queer and 17 and way too young from everything that we'd survived. We both were queer, and a lot of the time, once they finally met up, Raphael and his father would start to hit each other halfway through the meal. We met right after he'd smashed up all of the windows of the McDonald's during Toronto's version of the LA Rebellion, and his father had come back to him by putting him in the trunk of a car that crossed him over the border. We were these 2 brown queer punks, and we had some of the same experiences, and we were 22 and caffeinated and talked about them all night. So we're in the meeting, and someone's like, how come there's no people of color here for an anti-racist group? And some moron pipes up with, well, Raphael's a person of color, so I guess we've got one. I guess. And then this guy goes, and I'm Jewish, and it drives me insane. He's not a Jew of color. He thinks he's doing me some favor. Just because you're not some vegan from Richmond Hill doesn't mean you're not white. How come the cops always know I'm white, but these motherfuckers don't? I nodded. Yeah, there was that one time in Blackout Books when I tried to bring up they were helping gentrify the neighborhood because everyone was white but me. And then they laughed. And then one guy said, but we're anarchists, Leah. Of course we're against racism. Sometimes you do shit that doesn't make a lot of sense to anybody but you, but it's all lit up. You just know. Why move to Canada? Why run away to this city? Why put a border between me and the family I'm terrified of? Raphael's all lit up. This room is all lit up. This place we don't have any name for, brown, queer, and punk together, is all lit up. This is the one, the boy man I think I'm going to be with for the rest of my life. The answer to what I'm doing after I graduate from scholarship college, the one who's not just love, but the mixed brown survivor, separated birth, cray-cray brother I've been looking for. Thank you. Wait, is that 15 minutes? I have 3 minutes? Do I have 3 minutes? Okay, this is going to be really quick. Because you gotta leave them, because Randa's fucking hot and amazing and like over here, and we'll talk about this more, but I just want to say it really gives me so much love and appreciation the way brown femme writers like help each other survive. And I read your book before I had anything really published, and it meant so much to me and everyone I know that you wrote those stories. So thank you. That's my gush. This is just a little bit. Wait, hold on, now I can't. See, this is the thing when you try and blow it. Hold on. Okay. There's this bit in The Courage to Heal, the very last part, where it says something like, at some point your life will stabilize. You will find that incest is no longer the only focus of your life. It's the shortest section in the book. It doesn't exactly say what the hell that part of your life is going to look like either. But in my mind, it was a picture I'd had in my head as a kid, which I never quite knew how I was going to fit into, of a woman in an apartment serving dinner to her beautiful family, with an overlay of what happens when someone gets raped or remembers her abuse on a soap opera, a nice pastel therapy office, a nice lady counselor who's concerned, some crying, some uplifting music, and 6 weeks later, everything's fine again. I couldn't really see myself in it, though. But there was this period, after I broke up with Raphael, after I got the ability to work, after I got my Canadian green card and a SIN card, after I got a bank account and 2 jobs for $9.25 an hour and then one for $17. After I'd not been that late on rent for a while, after I'd started fucking again with mixed success, there'd been no thin beige yellow letters through the slot from immigration. My lover, Yoan, told me that when we first started dating, she thought I was an older lady with my shit together because I was 26, I had a couple of nonprofit jobs and some pants that didn't have holes in them. And after I met her, shit never got quite like that sentence in The Courage to Heal, but it did calm the fuck down for a while, even though we hooked up exactly 1 month and 5 days after 9/11, a time that could be called anything but calm. It was never that calm kind of quiet. It was the two of us sharing one CD, staying in bed basically for 6 months without changing the sheets, even though she only had one pair. They were black. Having all the 7-year-olds across the street screaming, "Get a room at us!" even though we were in front of her apartment. Living on that $2.99 breakfast, pack a day of cigarettes, her making me strawberry crepes, us making out in the abandoned truck with poor graffiti down the side, bonding over growing up broke, wearing each other's clothes, fucking till everything was raw, me fisting her till she somersaulted off the edge of the bed. I got cervical dysplasia from post-9/11 stress plus a pack a day. But even when she fucked me so hard there was blood to her elbow, I didn't want her to stop because I could feel something. 4 years went by like that, and if they were boring sometimes, it was the boredom my body was craving. Smokes and sleeps and taking 2 hours to crawl out of bed to make coffee, the same body in bed next to me, winter and spring and summer and fall. My body craved it like you crave 12 hours of sleep after a lifetime of none. In those years, things did normalize. They just never got normal. They might have stopped being all crisis all the time, but I couldn't stop thinking about what incest and childhood sexual abuse, about colonial rape and internalized racism, what they do, how they are, how the story of my family kept speaking in me even when it was the last thing I wanted to talk to. And maybe this is the story we most need to write and least want to. If this story of surviving abuse and being queer isn't about getting back to normal at the end goal, isn't just sheets and towels and a long, quiet Valium calm, isn't disaster and death and everything we ran from either, isn't anything we could have predicted, isn't anything predictable. What comes after this disaster we keep surviving every day? Thank you guys so much.
Let's have another round of applause for Leah. So Randa Jarrar is up tonight from the glamorous town of Fresno, California, ending her book tour. We're so grateful to have her here tonight with us. Now, Randa Jarrar is one of those rare writers who can write something scathing, hilarious, historically grounded, politically incendiary, and heartbreaking all at the same time. Rejecting the romanticizing, pathologizing, and demonizing views of Arab women in contemporary U.S. culture and around the world, Randa's new collection, Him, Me, Muhammed Ali, presents carefully crafted, flamboyantly incisive, and intimate short stories centering on women in the Arab diaspora. By slamming tradition into embodied experience, colliding superstition with class analysis, blending humor with horror, and always holding on to a rigorous critical engagement with a wayward and mischievous eye, Randa Jarrar upends expectation and reworks logic into an uncanny awareness. I do not have horns, but I am horny, says one of her characters toward the end of the book. And so are we. Randa's work has appeared in a wide variety of publications, including the New York Times Magazine, Utne Reader, and the Oxford American. And her first novel, A Map of Home, was published in half a dozen languages and won a Hopwood Award and an Arab American Book Award. Please welcome Randa Jarrar.
How's everyone doing? Yay! Thank you for coming out. It's super cold. There's a bit of feedback, but can you hear it, or is it fine? You can hear the feedback? Okay. Oh, I just did that. Okay. I don't have a copy of my book. Can someone go get one for me, please? It's they're out in the Him, Me, Muhammad Ali. It's the red. Awesome. So I drove cross country this summer because, thank you. It's something that like I've always wanted to do, but never had the privilege, never was able to, never had steady employment, never had, a vehicle that wasn't a Geo Metro. Has anyone here owned one of those? They're basically the Bic lighter of cars. They're just like, you have them, and you're just taking a huge risk every single day, and you're changing your tires maybe like once a week. I got so good at it. Like, I was so proud. I was like, it was like the butchiest I've ever been, and I was like changing tires like with ripped dresses on, but I was just like, I can fucking do this. But I drove cross country, and there were these signs along the road that like made me feel like I was like I was communicating with the universe, like even when I wasn't stoned, like when I was sober and driving. So like a couple of these signs, one was, let's see, I'm gonna pull them up. If you wear out your body, where are you going to live? Then I saw this Petco that had spikes all around its signage, including around the cartoon dog and cat. But a bird had made its nest there anyway, between the spikes and the wall. And I thought that was poetry. I was like, fuck yes. Birds, what's up? There's a note here. It says, I just drove over the Virgin River. It was dry. It really was. Then I just found some signs to be like prophetic or just poetic or poetic prophetic. Like one was Love's travel stops. So like there's this travel stop called Love's, but it was like Love's travel stops. And I was like, damn, like why? And then there were parts of Arizona where people in bathrooms were being really racist openly around me and kind of thinking that I was going to engage with them and like be racist with them. This truck driver was talking about how gross the bathroom we were in was, even though I thought it was so clean. And then when the indigenous family that was in there with us had left, like just as they left, the truck driver said like, well, you know, like so many people can just like piss on the side of the road and throw it out of the window. And I was just like, what? And she said, you know, now they just I drive a truck, but now they just let like, you know, monkeys and animals drive trucks, like these people coming in from Syria. And so I said, well, I'm glad that they're alive. I'm glad that they've come out. And she said, are you? And I said, yeah. And then I realized I was taller than her. And I just said, yeah, I'm Arab. I'm really fucking glad they're alive. And she started getting away from me very quickly. And going into like the aisles of the gas station outside the bathroom, and I followed her. And I said, what's the problem? And she said, well, I'm really, you know, I hope that you are okay with your tax dollars supporting those refugees. And I said, what are you talking about? Our tax dollars are creating those refugees. Like, what the fuck are you talking? You're fucking stupid. Like, I just couldn't take it anymore. I was like, you are fucking stupid. And everybody, you know, in the gas station was like, what's up with these two white ladies, you know? I was like, you're fucking stupid. And she turned around and, you know, she just like was hiding. She just kept hiding from me. And I told her, you know, I just said, I'm not a monkey. I'm not an animal. I'm a human fucking being. And you're a racist piece of shit. And it scared her. And I just think like I'm lucky that I was in Arizona and nothing else happened. But I've noticed that like I'm not, you know, I was just witnessing a date earlier where the person was femme. It was a straight couple seemingly, I don't know. And the femme person was doing most of the talking. And I was like, girl, like I was so ready to just sweep her off her feet because the other person was just like, So she was doing most of the labor. And after half an hour of spying on them at Elliott Bay Books, I was like, how is this gonna go? By the way, I'm only gonna read for like a couple of minutes. I just love babbling. So so I was like, how's this gonna go? And she was like talking and talking. She was just being amazing, talking about all these amazing ideas she had. Like she was just like, she was doing performance art essentially. And then at some point she said, you know, well, you know, Second City, you know, they've lost most of their amazing comics because comics of color have left. They've left Second City in Chicago. And he said, well, why? And she said, you know, because there were people heckling them. There were people heckling them and saying, you know, like yelling, you know, I don't want to trigger anyone, but like yelling racist and homophobic shit to these comedians. And he was just like, and that's when I was like, you need to fuck this guy. Like, let's go, Sarah. But she kept giving him a chance, you know? And she said, you know, because, and he said, yeah, like, what, are they trying to be ironic? And she said, no, they're actual racist homophobes. And, you know, no one was doing anything. And then he was, he was like doubling and repeating that pattern by like not being shocked, not being annoyed, not wanting to engage her in a conversation about race or class or homophobia or any of this. And I just really was like, please don't fuck this guy. Like, seriously, if anyone here knows someone who's racist in any tiniest way or homophobic in any tiniest way, quote unquote, please don't fuck them. Like, seriously, like that's enough. No one's fucking that truck driver, and I'm glad. Okay. So the last sign that I have noted here is pass with caution, because I was passing, I was trying to be cautious. I'm gonna read a teensy bit. This is from a short story called Lost in Frickin' Yonkers. New York during the summer of '96 sees some of its highest temperatures on record, and it's toward the end of the summer that I sit, my enormous pregnant belly to accompany me. I look over the tag that says 80% acrylic, 20% wool. And under the materials it says, made in ASU. So I'm sitting on the futon sweating. We have neither an air conditioner nor a fan, and our window is held up by an embarrassingly huge copy of Dirtiest Jokes, Volume 3, and wondering, should I marry my boyfriend? I quit worrying and start to masturbate, reminding myself that the pregnancy book says in the last trimester, the mother is at her sexual peak and that each strong orgasm brings her closer to contractions. How totally unfair this is, considering I can hardly reach my own crotch. The phone rings, and it's my mother calling from a payphone, wondering if she should make the 96th Street imam wait much longer. Don't bother, I say. Tell him to forget it. Tell him to go home. Why, Habibti? She says, come on, do the conversion and get married. We're all waiting for you. She sounds unconvinced and hurried. Who's we? I imagine that Mama had picked up a few Hell's Angels and a couple of squeegee boys for witnesses on her way to the city. He's not even here, I say. He's not converting. I don't want him to convert. He'll be a shitty Muslim and a shitty husband, too. Oh, it's not about shitty Muslim or not shitty Muslim. Come on, yalla, let's get this finished. Conversion, marriage, boom, boom. 2 stones with 1 pigeon, how they say? Sorry, Mama, he's at a bar getting shit-faced. Just go home before Baba gets suspicious. Final that? Yes, sorry, bye. The sun goes down, incidentally something my boyfriend never does, and Saturday is wrapping up, and I haven't seen his face since Thursday night. I decide to get up and call the bars. After I call the 5th bar and the bartender tells me what the others told me, he ain't here, Ida, I decide I have to switch strategies. I beg James's mother, who sits on the stoop 3 blocks away and chain smokes mint cigarettes all night, to let me borrow her caddy. She shows me her nails. She just had them done at the salon by the laundromat. What's that a decal of? It's a Christmas tree. What are you, blind? I had sharp eyes when I was your age. I get into the caddy and adjust the seat. I could steer with my navel at this point. I stick my head out of the window and say, isn't it too early for Christmas? It's never too early to celebrate the Lord's birthday, she says. We're getting the lights and garlands this weekend. I bet you are, you fucking psycho, I say when the window is up, the air conditioned on high and aimed directly at my face. When I first met James, I'd gotten off my shift, was drinking my first beer while he was on his 8th. A cigarette butt had accidentally sparked a small fire in my hair. He'd put it out by slapping my head over and over and over again. This seemed to foreshadow the nature of our entire relationship, and I should have known right then that this was not a person to have a child with. So I'm skipping ahead to when she's been, her dad has said that he doesn't want to ever talk to her again. He's going to change his mind in like 3 months, but, drama. When you're disowned, your mother becomes your secret lover, calling from payphones, visiting at odd hours and for short bits of time. And your lover becomes your mother, has to take care of you now that she's gone. It's been hard getting used to, and besides, my so-called lover is drunk and not very motherly. He's drunk in his sleep, he's drunk in the afternoon. He's drunk at work, drunk while we fuck, drunk when he throws a dictionary at my belly and causes me internal bleeding. He's drunk when I'm in the hospital waiting for a diagnosis from a doctor who scans my DOB and shakes her head. He's drunk when I tell him the baby will be all right. That night I have to drive home and I look over at him when we're stopped at a red light, see his Adam's apple dance up and down, eyes shut, dark forehead covered in sweat. This is it, I ask myself, hating the government and financial aid rules, my reproductive system, his dick, my father, and mostly my God. Not just God, but the God, the one who wrote the book resting in the car door pocket on my left, the book that my boyfriend erroneously skims from left to right, the book that provides guilt big enough to make me want to marry this asshole. The light turns green, a sign from God. I decide that, yeah, this is it. Skipping a teensy bit ahead. On Saturday, I take his car to the laundromat and pick up his clothes for the last time without a baby in tow. Jackie's there and she winks at me, says, "Good luck, child," and hands me a bag. I get in the car and back up into an Oldsmobile. "Holy shit," I say and jump out of the car. "It's all right," the woman says, snapping her gum. "It's my boyfriend's car anyway. Fuck him. Don't worry about it, hun." She gets in her car and drives away. A cop walks up to me and shakes his head. "All right, I saw that. You're lucky." He's gorgeous, all eyebrows and lips. I'm sorry, I'm having a baby tomorrow and I'm a little nervous, I say. No worries, he's $1, kid. Go get yourself a bagel and come back when you're ready to drive. He points at the diner next to the nail parlor. I realize all the girls are standing outside the shop talking about the accident. What happened, hun? They say. Nothing, Mrs. Leibowitz. I say, small accident. I'm getting a bagel. Look at my nail, Ida, says maybe the widow, sticking up her middle finger. When I get back in the car after eating a bagel and drinking 2 forbidden cups of coffee, I back up and this time hit a blue truck. A slim man jumps out. Yeah, and where were you going, huh? Fucking backing up like a rocket. Where to? Look at this fucking thing. It looks like Baghdad on my truck right now. Look at my fucking truck. I'm sorry, sir. I'm having a baby tomorrow. She's having the baby? Did she say? The woman at the parlor said. Yeah, she's also getting a ticket, yells the cop, walking back toward me. Please, I'm broke, I say. I'm having a kid, I tell the cop. Then turn to the man who has a mustache and looks eerily similar to the Egyptian comedian Adil Imam. And you, sir, your truck's not so bad. I live with a drunk and my parents disown me. I haven't seen my mother smile in over a year. I haven't seen my father, period. And I have these bags of potatoes I fry and eat on newspapers. Why on newspapers? Because my boyfriend throws dishes at me when he's drunk. He's always drunk. And in my entire life, every man who's claimed he loved me hit me. And I had to read those old Jewish ladies their fortunes every Shabbat for weeks and lie about their impending deaths. And there's not a single book by an Arab American woman in my college library. So please, cut me some slack, will ya? Mrs. Leibowitz and Mamie aren't sure what I've just said, but it sounded like a good speech. They start applauding and make the rest of the women standing outside the strip mall clap too. It's my fucking boss's truck, the man says, then looks away. The man's a bastard. All right, I'm going this way. You go that away. Once again, the cop says, and he looks at me, a lucky girl, and he doesn't give me a ticket. A lucky, lucky girl. Thank you.
Now we're going to have the conversation. This mic will be moved away. Thank you. Yes.
That was really good.
Yeah, let's have another round of applause. Oh, how is this mic? Can you hear me all right? Oh, good. How's yours? You want to test it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounding good, sounding good.
In South Philadelphia.
South Philadelphia?
Sometimes I just do the Fresh Prince song
Oh, perfect.
You know, I'm not doing the Fresh Prince.
Okay. Well, I thought maybe we could start by talking about humor. Because Randa, I think one of the things you do throughout the book and throughout all your work actually is you use humor to disarm the reader and also to talk about really complicated intersections, both in terms of life histories, in terms of, I mean, just in that one story, how many different layers you threw in just with, each trajectory of the narrative. And I think it's almost like you're giving a secret history lesson and challenging people at the same time.
Yeah, it's me being sneaky. I think that jokes and humor are a way of doing inside jokes. So it's a way for you to talk to your audience, your main audience. So I write for other Arab Americans and for other people of color and for queers. That's who I write for. And then everyone else is just everyone else. So there's a circle and it's concentric, and the people in the middle is who I write for, and then it goes outward. So when I use humor, there'll be something that maybe someone all the way out here in the circle can understand all the way back to the inside, right? But then there'll sometimes be humor where it's just in the middle, where it's just to my target audience. They're getting this. And it's my way of saying, we're in this. You're, not a lot of people are getting this, but you and I are connecting. You're my reader, you're my boo right now, and we're connecting. And I want to see you, and I want you to see that I see you. So that's my that's my main goal for using humor. Also, I'm good at it. I'm fucking good at it. I always have been. And Like I was never a fat kid, but like looking back, I'm like, fuck, like I was such a secret fat kid, like with all my awesome jokes. And I just think it's like, I just think like women can sometimes, and femmes can be very, you know, like humble about this shit. And, you know, that's how like someone like Louis C.K. becomes a superstar, you know? Like, I'm not gonna be fucking humble. You know, being funny is a sign of like, you know, brilliance, and it's a way to survive in a time that's just fucking not fucking funny. So yeah.
And I think one of the things you're saying in a way is the refusal to talk to this imagined center. You know, we're always taught, I think, as any writers who don't fit into the sort of straight white male, so-called middle America, that we're supposed to be talking to that, right? And I wonder if you want to also talk about your refusal, because I think all of your work, you know, very directly refuses that.
Yeah, no, it goes back to, I don't know if anyone remembers, does anyone remember Anything That Moves? It was a bisexual magazine out of the Bay in the 90s. Yeah, well, so they had this, like I was this, like, young kid trying to, like, write and get my name out there. Is this working okay? Yeah, well, and I still remember they had, like, this very, like, 90s, like, we're going to have a people of color special issue. And I wrote this article, and, like, the editor was like, she emailed me at my Hotmail address, you know, and was like, you know, most of our readers aren't going to know who Bell Hooks is. Could you put a glossary in, like, defining who that is? And she was totally serious, and we had to have this very slow dial-up argument where I was like, no, I'm not going to define for your like white readership who Bell Hooks is. She has 12 books out by now. Like, I think they can go to the fucking library. Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. Like, I really love what you're saying about humor being insider language, you know, and also like a survival strategy. And I really love the imagery of concentric circles so much. And yeah, I think I agree. You know, I think in all my writing, I've been very on purpose about, you know, everything from just wanting to write working class English and working class language, which, you know, gets me in so much shit with editors all the time, where they're like, okay, I mean, and I have to say with this book, which, you know, like I said, took a decade to come out, partly because I just needed a decade to write it, and because, like many queer writers of color, I was working like 17 jobs simultaneously and like crisis counseling the entire community, and then having a chronic illness, you know, really, really chill, and then dating a schmuck, you know, whatever, or several schmucks. But I had so many editors like literally say to me, queer people of color don't read, don't buy books, you know, so actually this is too marginal. And one of the last places that I tried, which had actually given me an award, which is an independent feminist press, they were like, yeah, we found this novel that Muriel Rukeyser wrote in 1930 about the Spanish Civil War, and we think it's going to have more of a reach than your book. And they were totally serious, and I was like, are you fucking, like, what the fuck is your problem? So, I mean, I think there's a lot I could say about it, but I think that what I will say is I think that every writer of color I know, every sex working writer, every femme writer, every working class writer, every disabled writer has to really fight a battle not to get edited, bullied into like translating our work for people who aren't us, you know? And it doesn't really amaze me, but it kind of amazes me that editors still think that the only people who read are like white, straight, middle class people, you know? So that's who we have to write for. Like the same people were like, do you want it to be big? Do you want it to be on Oprah? And I was like, Oprah stopped broadcasting, but yes, theoretically. But also I'm like, do you really think like, you know, white straight ladies in Indiana are like, you know, the majority of people who even watch Oprah or who read books or who need writing? You know, and there's just this continued refusal to understand that we have our own languages and they're valid. And I've been told so many times like, oh, well, we want the most number of people to be able to understand your work. And I'm like, yeah, me too. And they're actually not who you think the majority. There's a reason why people of color in Canada call ourselves the world majority, because we are. So, you know, it's like put that in your pipe and smoke it, basically. Not your pipe, but, you know, the metaphorical pipe.
Do you think like, do you want to co-write a book about, you know, like when something terrible happens, like someone dumps us, something totally terrible, like someone dumps us. We go on a hike, and we can call it like Wilder.
I actually think it should be that like we, you know, buy a house and we have jobs and insurance and we live together and we're married, and then when we're 75, somebody gets cancer.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And so
And then
the
we
other
paint bridges.
the other
Yeah.
person like liquidates everything and moves us into a tiny house.
Yeah, but then they
Because
really find what's
owning
important.
too much stuff is
Right.
what caused the cancer. And
Yeah,
the
you just
cancer
throw
goes away.
99% away.
And then we drive the tiny truck to like a small Mexican town where we start an Italian pizzeria.
Yeah, and we just drink.
And
or
we
actually,
save all
we go
the
to
children.
Thailand. We go to Thailand. We go to Thailand,
Absolutely.
and there's a beautiful Brazilian
get it
guy.
shipped.
Yeah, no, who loves us. And then we walk into the water again, and we get married again. It's beautiful.
But then you and I fall in love.
Yeah, we do.
Because
Well, that
that's
might be a
actually what
little
ended up
weird.
happening.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's actually what ended up happening.
Which book are
Cheryl
we in?
Strayed is. Oh no,
Oh.
Elizabeth Gilbert is in
Oh,
love.
yeah.
Is in love with her
Yeah,
Arab
yeah, yeah.
American best
Right.
friend.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah,
good.
I'm like, can
Why
we?
doesn't she write about that? Does the Arab American want to write about it? No, probably has a gag order.
No, the Arab
Yeah.
American's written a bunch of books, but not a lot of people have heard of her.
Ah, it's so funny. That's so strange.
So anyway.
Wow,
Are
this
there
can't
any
be that
agents
good.
in the audience? So maybe someone wants to sell this
That won't
book.
really help.
Let's start our own publishing company. I'm fucking tired of these
We just need to
assholes.
assassinate a couple people and get several $1 million, and then we'll be fine.
Yeah.
JK,
This is what I'm
FBI.
going to do. I want to pay poets $50,000 a book.
Yeah.
Essentially
here
just
Did you
first.
write a thing about how you need to just? Was it you who wrote the thing where you're like, I actually just need to like sit around and think about shit, and can you just pay me for that? Did you say that, or was that another queer writer of color?
I might have.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I say that
I mean,
all the
that's
time.
true. Yeah. Well, then you probably. It's
That's
like
why I'm an
writing.
academic.
We're from an oral tradition.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so if anyone here has a trust fund, we're here afterwards.
Yeah, please.
Or now,
No, I seriously, I have
you
a
just
business
bring the
plan.
credit card. Yeah.
The first novel we're publishing is Sketch to See.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm ready.
Oh, yes.
title ever.
Can we talk about that? Can you talk about
Sure,
your
sure.
novel
How's it
with
going?
us?
Oh,
Yeah.
my
What's your
novel.
writing process?
Oh, my writing process. Well, I have a new novel. It's called Sketch to See. It's done. It's been done for a few years. It's waiting on the publishing industry. Something could be happening soon, hopefully. But
Who knows?
it's, yeah.
Well, since you wrote it 5 years into the future, you're just going to have to wait.
I'm ready. Well, we just had a wonderful
I'll go home now.
improv situation here. I loved it.
We can all talk. It's all chill.
Yeah.
Do you have other questions?
Oh, I have lots of questions.
what are
I have
your
lots of
questions?
questions, but we can go wherever we want to go.
Yeah.
I wonder if you want to talk about sort of how you. I feel like neither of you is afraid to engage with contradiction in your work. And I think either whether we're talking about the contradiction between home and placelessness, or between citizenship and belonging, between abuse and love, intimacy and loss. All of these contradictions, I think, are constantly in your work in different ways. But I wonder if you want to talk about how your decision to place them alongside one another rather than trying to simplify or make it more quotation mark palatable for a mainstream audience that you were just satirizing.
I like that you just said quotation mark palatable. It's a really good phrase.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I don't know. What do you think of it? I mean, I don't think it's contradictions. I just think it's life. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I think that when people are like, well, you can either write an abuse memoir or a race memoir. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. We're in 1983. Cool. Or whatever. Like, I just think that most people have lives that are everything at once. So why don't you want to write that? Because that's actually what most people experience.
Yeah. Hate
Yeah.
is intersectional. Hate is intersectional.
Yeah.
So it's like to create a narrative that's going to be palatable, right? Or that's going to have one sort of linear stream going through it, to me is totally fucking boring and stupid and counterproductive. If I'm going to develop hemorrhoids and be sitting around literally seriously for years writing a book, I'm going to write about the shit that I care about and that makes sense to me, which is contradictions, which is complicated people. People are fucking complicated. I had my kid when I was 18, and I mean, I never in a million years thought that I would be a shitty parent, but sometimes I'm a fucking shitty parent. And sometimes I'm a fucking awesome parent, and sometimes I just say that I can't fucking stand the white heteropatriarchy, and then sometimes I'm sucking a white dick. It's one of those things where
So it goes.
everything is complicated, right? What did you say?
So it goes.
So
yeah.
it goes. No, but it's this complicated, difficult, human, flawed, bye. Is it because I said I was? Is it? What did they say?
Is he going to suck
Don't
a lot of
pretend
things?
that we haven't all sucked away. I mean, I know I have. I mean, I won't make any assumptions about anyone else.
I mean, we all have symbolically for sure. So,
Metaphor of the white dick.
right, metaphorically.
Metaphor of the reality.
I mean, if you know, yeah.
That's a good way to clear a room. You just say white dick, and then people, I don't know, and that could be for a lot of reasons. They're like,
Might
I
have been the
can't.
sucking part, though. I'm not sure. I mean,
So visceral.
what's wrong with sucking here? I'm not sure. I don't know.
Sinus infection. But, I don't
You
know.
got to clear it somehow.
Yeah,
exactly.
it's like a neti pot, but it's a
exactly.
penis. Exactly. Anyway. So contradictions. Mao wrote about contradictions.
Mao
Did. He has a whole book on contradictions. I haven't read
Wow.
it.
What's the book? I don't know
On
that
contradictions.
book. Oh, that's what it's called?
Yeah,
On
it's-
Contradictions?
yeah, it's like
By
700
Mao?
page- Mao.
Oh, wow. Does it contain the blood of some of the people he assassinated inside?
I mean, probably. Yeah, he's like, I'm going to, make a revolution and murder people. I mean, there you go.
He knew. He was like,
Plus dick suck.
yeah, someone's dick is getting sucked.
There's like 3 pages of questions.
Well, no,
here.
these are
It's
just
very
notes.
impressive.
We don't
Oh,
have
okay.
to. We don't have to get to
Like,
anything in
what is
particular.
this?
We go in
Are
whatever
there burning
direction.
questions you have?
Oh, I mean, I always have lots
This
of
one
burning
asks for my
questions.
number. I'll just give it to you later.
Oh, okay, yeah. Can I?
Yeah, I'll give it to you another time. Can I just tell everyone, sometimes Mattilda calls and leaves me voicemails, and I'm like, speaking of contradictions, like, I love Mattilda so much. Like, we once went for a walk, and she looked like Mrs. Dalloway. She just looked like so amazing. She had on this hat, and I don't remember why I was here, but we just went for a walk to the park, and we dropped into like an open house for a condo, like pretending like it was just like, not enough square footage for the dick sucking that I want to do, and I just like left, and then. But yeah, she sometimes calls and like leaves these awesome messages, and like even though I love her, like the telephone kind of scares me. But then I keep her messages and like listen to them, and I'm just like, oh my god, it's so funny. But that way, like I don't have to respond on the spot.
Well, I love that you keep them. Now I'm going to leave more.
Yes,
'Cause
please do.
I've been wondering about that norm. This new norm where people are so afraid of the phone.
Yeah,
What
you
is
have,
it?
and you have a.
'Cause we're all
she has
similar
a dial-up.
ages,
Do you have
you
like
know.
an? Because I love that dial-up.
I've been thinking
Landline.
about dial-up for the apocalypse. Yeah, no, that was Sprint, $15 a month. I recently I got displaced from Oakland because of Google, and then I moved a couple places, and then I moved here, which is like Google Light, for people who are not from here. It's like Google for people who are from here in terms of the gentrification expulsion thing. But in that period, I'm estranged from my family, so I have like one wooden spoon and like a bunch of photographs, and that's it. And then I have every journal I've written in since like 4th grade, and it got shipped up from my storage unit. So I was going through it, and I was looking, and there was just like all of this stuff that I've saved since 1999, which is everything from actually my phone bills from 2004 to like, really, really when I was working at like the feminist rape crisis line in 99, like my training documents. And this is kind of a segue, but like it did make me think about like all of the minutiae of being an oppressed writer's life, and about things like how much you paid on your phone bill and your internet in 2004 are actually really telling. Because I did have like $15 a month Sprint dial-up, and I was like, oh my god, I don't have to go to the library anymore. This is so great. Things are going to progress. I'm going to be able to edit a lot easier. And it also made me think about the ways in which it's like diasporic people, poor people, survivors, like there are all those little pieces of paper that you hold on to as much as possible because they prove that you exist, right? And that like you probably aren't going to necessarily get it together to send to an archive someday. And I'm just like, okay, if I was me in 30 years, I don't know if I'd want to look at my Sprint bill, but I'm just like, no, look, it's there. This is really important. And that's also the kind of writer stories we don't tell about, like what we pay on the rent, like what it's like to be that character in your story who's a writer to be. And I really love that bit where she goes and she actually looks up in the card catalog of the college library, Arab American women writers, and there's just like nothing, right? And that bit where she's like, I'm pregnant, I'm frying these potatoes that cost 39 cents a pound, on the newspaper, and I just got 2 parking tickets. And that's her writing life. Like that's not, Eat, Pray, Love. That's her writing life right there. Yeah. That was my segue. That wasn't really answering a question, but
I have I had like this speaking of landlines, I had this I like basically exhausted every social security number I knew until I just couldn't have another phone line. And so then I discovered that I could go to this furniture rental place.
Oh, that's really good.
For $9.99, you could get a phone line.
Yeah.
And they didn't ask for an ID. So I used the character of my first novel's name, Nadali Ammar. So if you look up in the white pages, Nadali Ammar, it'll give you like an old Austin phone number. And I fucking I didn't realize what I was doing at the time. But of course, like whenever I would call my friends, like that's what they would see because they were advanced. So they had like caller ID. I was calling from like a $4.99 like phone I got from like Walgreens or Walmart or something.
Dollar store.
Yeah.
And
like, yeah, and so now this character like lives, continues in NSA documents and like wherever the fuck else,
you brought her to life.
Yeah,
She's gonna be a Cylon.
she's gonna get deported.
Well, she's gonna be a deported Cylon.
she's gonna go to the camps.
We talked about.
I know
that
we
in
got
Toronto.
quiet, but I mean it's gonna happen.
Talk about Toronto, actually, because I think one of the things that you do in the book is you tell this really, I mean, it's your own personal story, but you're also telling a story about Toronto. And I think Toronto is a global city that isn't often put in the same place. I mean, you're talking about leaving New York and going to Toronto and finding all these things that were not accessible to you in New York, like queer people of color, like other femmes, healthcare. And so I wonder if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I have this joke with some of my friends where we call Toronto Cousin City because it's like the third world secret where like wherever you live, you have a cousin in Toronto or most likely in the immigrant suburb ring that's like, 5 hours. It's stretching like 5 hours outside of Toronto. And there's a saying that some folks of color had in the UK in the 60s, which was we're here because you were there. And they were basically saying like we're in the United Kingdom because London colonized the world, right? And, it was really similar in Toronto. It's like this majority people of color city. It's like when I was there in the 90s, it was like people from like literally all over the world. And we were all children of immigrants. And, like something like a tenth of the city was South Asian. And it was South Asians from like across the subcontinent, the Caribbean, South African South Asians, like world's biggest Sri Lankan expat population. Mostly because in the 70s and 80s, not so much now, but a little bit, Canada let in so many refugees the States wouldn't let in. Right, because they had this moment of liberalism where they were like, oh yeah, we're like Margaret Atwood and like peace and love and like arts funding and yeah, refugees are cool and we're still gonna, make you take your college degree over and everything, but we'll let you in the door. And it was a really beautiful place for me, and it still is. We were actually like fortuitously just there. You met my sister. That was wild.
Yeah, that was amazing.
That was really great. But there was just a lot of really interesting cultural things that happened there, and I think still happen there in that kind of cross-pollination of like everybody black and brown and native who grew up in the same neighborhood, which is true in so many different people of color areas and cities, but there's a way in which everyone was very conscious in a way that doesn't happen in the States as much of A, there's a world outside the United States, and B, we can actually relate to each other first before we relate to white people. And people really had, in this really like hood working class way, had this real understanding of like anti-coloniality and like we're all from these recently decolonized nations, sort of, and we're all hanging here in Scarborough and like, like going and getting roti together and making cultural work. And it was really powerful. It's still really powerful. I will say that like when we were together, Trump had just been elected 3 days before. And my partner had just come back from working on a pot farm and had not had internet for a month, and then got off the plane and was like, what the fuck is happening? And I was like, just get in the car. We got to go. And they're freaking out. And they're just like, oh God. And I'm like, yeah, well, you can go back to the mountain. But I'm just like, no, it's fine. I'm 40. I lived through 9/11. It's like people will die, but we have to fight. And then 2 days later, I just like sat straight up in bed and I was like, we have to get married. You do your trans name paperwork and like, we're going to get married and we have to go to Toronto before the border closes. And which is totally my grandma. And then I actually had this, because my grandma was to just have as many passports as possible. And I'm like, right, yeah, always. And names, just keep that. But anyway, long story short, like I will say, like I went there and there's so many, as people joke about people being like, I'm going to move to Canada. And I actually can move to Canada. And I went there and I was like, actually, I'm not going to like abandon millions of people who I care about to get slaughtered and put in the camps. Even as you said, you were like, I'm going to have Zatara in the camps and that's how I'm going to survive. Because resilience, Yeah. But, yeah, I don't know. I will say like it's an amazing place. There's also really, I think it's really important to assert, especially, I've heard a lot of people in Seattle be like, oh, it's so white. And I'm like, actually, this is a really people of color city. If it's getting less of one, that's happening on purpose. And it doesn't mean that Renton and South Seattle still aren't black and brown. You want to say something? Yeah.
I mean, about Toronto,
About anything.
I've never spent more than like a few days there, but I know that like I live in Fresno, California, and it has such a bad reputation. So I feel like I'm going to be safe there.
Yeah.
You know, like I feel like people just drive through it to go to Yosemite, or like from LA to the Bay. They usually stop to have sex with me. Like if they're my friend, you know, I'm like, did you go through Fresno and not have sex with me? No, honestly, no, seriously, no, really, like that happened, but like a week ago. But
as often as possible, I hope.
yeah, but Fresno is one of those places where like it, you know, a lot of the agriculture, a lot of the food, you know, that Americans eat is grown there, or around there, and even though a lot of the farmers now are Trump supporters and just fucking stupid and paying their workers like, you know, way you know, not minimum wage, obviously, like illegally, just fucking up their workers, and but at the same time, this is the same place that had a commie farmer when Angela Davis was in prison, and there was you know, finally bail for her. I think like Aretha Franklin was like, I don't know, like on some island and couldn't wire it. And so a farmer from Fresno sent in the money to have her bailed out, and his entire, you know, his family got, you know, totally discriminated against, and like his kids couldn't go to school anymore because all the racists in the town were like pissed off. But like that's what I think. Like I think like I could move to Toronto and have a really cute girlfriend, or I could stay in Fresno and be living on the land that freed Angela Davis, and I could like, you can just throw a shoe in the ground in Fresno and it grows. Something will grow.
Yeah, that's not true in Toronto.
A pomegranate, yeah.
No pomegranate.
Yeah,
We have like
so-
a 3-month growing season. It's
Well,
not good.
what I'm just discovering that like this idea that artists have to live in big cities, that artists of color, you know, anyway, artists in general have to live in big cities, and then, you know, for poor artists of color and artists of color who have you know, kids or working class, whatever, like that's just not a possibility, right? Like I've never been able to live in a really big city. I just can't afford it. I don't want to. And I find that these smaller cities where people like can afford their rent and can just grow shit in their backyard and ride their bike everywhere, that's like actually where it ends up being, you know, all these intersections happen. And I find that, I feel like people have that in Toronto and they already have it.
I mean, the rent is not cheap.
Right.
But-
Well, that's true. Yeah. And it's cold.
As fuck.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I as a Palestinian, like I just love having this one place, you know, and if and when they come for us, you know, like I'll, you know, I'm looking into buying some land next year. So that's cheap. So, and some guns. I am.
I told you machetes are legal.
Oh, hell
and
yeah.
cheaper. That's what we're doing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, we can go after this is over and just yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
There's a quote in your book.
This is being filmed. Shit.
Speaking of machetes.
I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. I'm buying guns. Like
Randa's buying guns.
I'm an American. I'm buying guns. You know what? The other side is like doing some stupid shit. I'm gonna do some stupid shit. I'm tired of like being the bigger person. Literally am usually, but like I'm also just tired of the left being fucking stupid and being like, no, we have to like be gentle. We have to. No, don't be fucking gentle. Okay, this dude who like published Spencer's address and got fired. Do you guys know? Do you people know? Yeah. So there's a petition to try to get him his job back. It's been signed by 37 people. That's fucking shameful. Like that person should not have lost his job for why is Spencer's house still standing? I don't understand. Like it needs to be fucking broken into. People need to fucking throw grenades into it. I don't give a fuck. Like that person is a white supremacist nationalist evil bastard who is going to cause and has caused the murder of so many people. Like his house needs to not be like hooked
because
up right
honestly,
now.
when Nazis are scared, that's actually what works.
Yeah.
To stop it. That's pretty
Yeah,
much
and
it.
I come from a tradition where, like that's how Palestinians got any kind of, whatever. Like, I mean, like, like you look at, resistance fighters in the 60s and 70s. They didn't kill anyone, but they scared the shit out of people. They would hijack a plane and be like, we're not going to hurt anyone on this plane, but we are going to fucking hijack this plane, But those aren't heroes. The heroes are like, who's that dude who hijacked a plane like for a stunt and then jumped out of it? Like he was like an art heist person. There's like a art heist person. Anyway, he's not important to me, but like, I feel like in our culture, like the lore is like, like, the guy who like walked between the Twin Towers, like he's amazing. That Philippe Petit guy, like he's just so amazing. He just like did this walk. And it's like, the only reason he's important is because they're not there anymore. Anyway, I'm just, whatever. I'm angry and I'm tired of being nice. I'm tired of like seeing my white friends on the left fucking write letters and postcards that say not Bannon. Fuck your postcards. That's enough. Like fucking get out there and like do some shit.
I was gonna be like, if we're counting on Jill Stein to save us, we're all really fucked. But
We're so fucked because she has not been vaccinated.
No.
And some shit is coming. Like they're gonna start releasing some shit.
Some shit's already here. She would just have to go to Olympia where it's like 70% unvaccinated.
I still have my smallpox.
Little. Yeah, me
like,
tue.
Vaccine. Like
we're from immigrant families. We
hell
get vaccinated.
Yeah, I've been vaccinated like to the gills.
40 times.
To the fucking gills.
The gills.
Bring it. Okay.
Well, I like the way this conversation is going off the map. Well, speaking of maps, your first book is called A Map of Home. And Leah has a great quote in her new book, which is being mixed was barely on the map, even though it was everywhere on the map. And so I wonder if you want to kind of talk about this, how the things that are the most visible are made invisible in a certain way, and the ways in which both of your work is about bringing that visibility back, challenging the notion that invisibility is, a valid, well, it's a forced position, right? And so you're challenging that forced position.
Do you want to talk about like maybe also hypervisibility, femme woman of color?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Perfect.
Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, first of all, I just want to say like thank you for that. That was this is the talk show. It's amazing. I mean, I guess like the first thing that comes to mind is like I think that anytime anyone talks about like, for example, like invisible disabilities is a term I really hate because as somebody with a chronic illness, I actually think my shit's pretty visible. And I mean, my line has always been like, with any group of people where that kind of narrative is like, oh, you're so invisible, you're an invisible femme, you're an invisible mixed race person. I was like, no, some people just don't know how to see it. That doesn't mean it's not there. And that's actually an act of erasure, and it's really deliberate and on purpose, and it's not an accident. And I don't know if I'm thinking they were probably feeling similar about this, but I feel like when people first started talking about like femme stuff in the recent period, when they've been talking about queer femme stuff, like at first, like it just felt like it was like mandatory to be like, oh yeah, invisibility, that's our big issue. And then like a lot of people, like especially femmes of color, working class femmes, fat femmes, were like, actually, we're really fucking visible. We're really blatant. We're really loud. It's not like there's one way to be femme, but actually we don't look like the same as some nice pastel straight lady from like Dubuque or whatever, like we're actually, straight people look at us and are like, you look really different and you look like a slut I want to kill and, you might kill me. And that's actually really political. So I think that's really important to say. And the thing I'll say about like mixed race was nowhere on the map, but was everywhere on the map, is thank you for finding that line. I mean, I guess a lot of what I wanted to do in this book was I wanted to write about growing up this mixed race kid in the 80s and what it was like, and to not write the story about like, oh my God, yeah, it was so hard. We were such freaks back then. But to actually be like, my experience of mixedness was that it was before, it was like Reagan America. Like there were barely any people of color in ads, let alone like representations of people who are mixed. And there's a million experiences of being mixed, including ones that predate colonialism and are not North American. But like when I was growing up, people were just like, you're what? And your parents are what? And whoa. And there was that feeling of like, there's not a cultural story out there that I can plug into at all. So what the fuck do I do? And I think the thing that people always do in that situation is like, you have the opportunity to write your own story. And I think like what I want to say about it being everywhere on the map is like actually mixed race is not new. It's not been new since before Europeans showed up here and raped everybody. And it definitely has not been new since that happened. And also, as I think we were talking about in Toronto, there's all these, or actually, we're talking about it a little bit, but I definitely was talking about it with a friend who's doing 23andMe. That like you spit in a tube and they tell you where you're from. Yeah, which I got excited about, but then like it turns out if you're South Asian, all they can tell you is you're part of General South Asia, which sounds like a military person, General South Asia. And I was like, I'm not paying you $99 to tell me that, like I know. But I was talking with a friend and they were just like, yeah, so many of our peoples are mixed anyway. And I was like, yeah, with Sri Lankans, we're a population that's like equally North Indian, South Indian, Aboriginal Sri Lankan, Malaysian, and East African, plus like the Dutch, the British, and the Portuguese. So, and we've all been having sex for a long time, consensually or not. So like, what do you make of that? And a lot of that actually predates European colonization. Like we've been actually trading and sharing cultures for a while. And that's a completely different story than kind of the way the mixed race now gets talked about as like, oh, you're like an attractively ambiguously beige person who can be in an ad. Until we decide to profile you at the airport, which, yeah.
Absolutely.
That's what I got. Yeah.
And like for me, it's just this really obvious thing that happened when I was a kid, and then until forever is I'll look at a map or a globe, and the part that's supposed to say like Palestine, or anything Palestinian doesn't say that. It says Israel, and so just like looking at that part of the map and seeing that like my entire dad's family has been erased makes me want to recreate that map. Right, so just like I just wanted to do something that was basically like the counter, like just the most simple thing to what you're saying, because what you're saying is like it's super complicated, right? But there's also this like really basic shit that's happening when you don't even see yourself on a map, you don't even see your past on a map, you don't see your lineage, right? And it's a choice, and that the map doesn't say that. And so like for me, that's what a lot of this book is about. The Himmi Muhammad Ali is like all these different intersections and what happens. Like there's a story in there about a bird who gets captured by Tel Aviv University students to keep tabs on his migration pattern, because that happens to a lot of birds. A lot of the Middle East is like an area of different migration patterns for birds. But when these birds get caught up in Tel Aviv University labs and tagged so that they can monitor their migration, they land in other parts of the Middle East with these tags on. And then they get into trouble, So I was in Istanbul one summer, and like there was this news story about how this bird had been caught by the Turkish military. It had been X-rayed. It had been given a prisoner number, and it had been interrogated. Essentially, it had been like checked to see if it was a drone or which is interesting because now there are drones, right? There are these flying birds that are doing dirty jobs for us and in our name, and so. Like for me, I wanted to write a story from the point of view of that bird, because that bird doesn't have to like look at a map and be like, "Where's my thing?" Like that bird is from everywhere, and specifically from a village in Palestine, and he does migrate and he does get into trouble, and it affects even his life. So that was my way of like tapping into that, in the most stripped down version possible, from the point of view of someone who doesn't need a passport or paperwork or papers for checkpoints.
I think that's a perfect place to end. So now let's have another round of applause for our brilliant readers. And now there's time for socializing, for private questions, for book signing, of course. I love hugs, so if anyone wants a hug, I'm here.
I leave kiss marks on my books that I sign.
Ooh, kiss marks on the books. And number for when you're driving through Fresno. Depends on the situation. So the next Contagious exchanges will be, it's January, the first Wednesday in January. I wrote down, what is that date? That is Wednesday, January 4th.
That's my birthday.
Oh my God, it's Randa's birthday. So we're going to celebrate Randa's birthday on January 4th with Sarah Galvin and David Schmader. And one other event that I'm doing is coming up on January 17th. I'll be in conversation with Sarah Schulman at the Seattle Public Library downtown. We'll be talking about her new book, Conflict is Not Abuse. So thanks for a wonderful audience. Thanks for brilliant readings. Stay around, socialize, buy books, get some hugs, some kiss marks on the books, and anything else. Hugs, more hugs. See, we like hugs. So thanks again. Another round of applause.